Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi, I'm Jamie, host of Murderish, the podcast. On Murderish, I give you a 3D look at gripping murder cases. Just the facts, no banter. By the end of each episode, you'll know who was involved, details of the crime, and what went down at trial. Also featured on Murderish is my own personal story about the time a man followed me home at night and I found him in my bedroom. Listening to this podcast doesn't make you a murderer. It just means you're murder-ish. Listen to Murderish on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you want to listen to this episode ad-free, you can do so by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or heading over to patreon.com/themurderdiariespod. On Spotify, just search The Murder Diaries ad-free. Welcome back to another episode of The Murder Diaries. I'm Paige.
And I'm Natalie.
Breanna Muriwai was a happy and bubbly woman despite trauma in her childhood. She was motivated and determined to become a nurse that specialized in mental health after seeing and experiencing mental health struggles firsthand. During a weekend away with friends, something happened, and to this day, no one is really sure what. Conflicting stories, disappearing evidence, and a mother desperate for answers is all that has come out of the past 2 years of investigation. Breanna deserves better. This is her story.
Used to think it's in my head, but I'm walking with the dead.
New Zealand is the first country to see the sun, to welcome a new day. That means they're also the first to welcome a new year. And in the year 2000, they made a very big deal out of being the first ones to see the new millennium. Breanna Muriwai was born January 1st, 2000. This made her one of the first babies born in the new millennium. Breanna's mom, Jasmine, known to her friends as Jazz, met Breanna's father when she was 14 years old. The teen couple found out they were expecting 3 months later, and Jazz was just 15 years old when Breanna was born. You could say that she and her eldest daughter grew up together. Breanna's father left school and trained to be a bricklayer so that he could help support his new family. He later qualified to be a personal trainer. Jazz had a lot of family support and was able to start her motherhood journey surrounded by love. Jazz and Breanna's father went on to have 4 more children together. They ended up having a total of 5 children, including Breanna, in 7 years. The family moved to Australia, specifically Brisbane, with Breanna and the next 2 youngest children. The last 2 of Jazz and Breanna's father's children were born after the family moved to Australia. Jazz told the Fresh Start podcast in an interview that she had been raised around a lot of domestic violence and she experienced trauma from seeing her mother hurt at the hands of her stepfather. Her mother, Susie, was hardworking, loving, and always made sure her kids had dinner on the table and a nice home to live in, while her partner, Jazz's stepfather, drank heavily and often went into, quote, alcohol-fueled rages. Breanna's father was from a similar background, and while they tried to raise their children in a different environment, Jazz said that there was a lot of drinking and partying on the weekends by Breanna's dad, which caused arguments. Breanna's dad was a perfectionist, and when things weren't going right, he would turn to alcohol. They did try, however, to shelter their children from the adult disagreements. When Breanna was 9 years old, her father died by suicide. Jazz told the Fresh Start podcast that when she got up to make their youngest a bottle, she found him deceased. She called for her mom, who was visiting at the time, and the pair tried to resuscitate him, but there was nothing that could be done. Breanna saw and heard everything that happened that morning and was at an age that she really could comprehend what was going on. With that, this day changed her and her family forever. After her partner's death, Jazz was left with 5 young children, away from her home country and her support system. She made the decision to pack up the family and leave Australia to move back to the Kapiti Coast area of the Wellington region in New Zealand, where her mom lived and where she had grown up.
New Zealand is made up of 2 main islands, the North Island and the South Island. The islands are similar in size to California and separated in the middle by the Cook Strait, which is a body of water that requires a 4-hour ferry ride or a plane trip to cross. As for Kapiti, where Breanna is from, it's located near the southern tip of the North Island, not far from the capital city of Wellington.
Once they were back in New Zealand, Breanna really stepped up to help Jazz, as Jazz was consumed by grief. Jazz told the Fresh Start podcast that she turned to alcohol, drugs, and prescription medication to help her cope. She would leave her children with her mom sometimes for a couple months at a time while she attempted to make sense of what happened. During shorter episodes, Breanna would ensure that things were taken care of around the house, that her siblings were well fed and looked after. Jazz said her turning point came when Breanna was 13 and Jazz had been unconscious for 16 hours while Breanna had looked after her siblings and the house. The look of worry on Brianna's face when Jazz woke up told her all she needed to know. She knew she needed to make a change. In that moment, Breanna thought that her mom was going to die, that she was going to lose another parent. And that is what set Jazz on her path to sobriety. The trauma of not only losing her father at such a young age, but also being around while her mom attempted to resuscitate him stayed with Breanna. She struggled with mental health, namely depression, as she got older, but Jazz said that Breanna found comfort and success with using meditation and crystals. Running, making TikTok videos with her friends, listening to music, and going on road trips were other activities that made Breanna happy and helped her on the days that her mental health was a struggle. Jazz has also said that Breanna would self-medicate with alcohol when things got too bad as a way to suppress her feelings and make them more manageable to deal with. Despite all of the struggles she faced, Breanna excelled in school and worked as a caregiver at a local retirement home. Jazz told the New Zealand Herald that Breanna was outgoing and vibrant with a wicked sense of humor. In case you're wondering what she means by wicked, in New Zealand, much like is used here in the US on the East Coast, wicked is used to kind of emphasize in a positive manner. So what she's saying is she had a really great sense of humor. Jazz went on to say that Breanna was very bright and had dreams of becoming a nurse, specializing in mental health. When she finished high school, Breanna enrolled in a nursing course, and she was on her way to achieving her dreams. She wanted to help people like her dad to live full lives and reach their potential. At 17, Breanna went to live with her grandmother, Susie, who was like a second mom to her, and she remained very close with Jazz as well. In fact, the three of them got along really well, and the arrangement worked for everyone. Breanna knew that she could go to her mom for anything, no matter what, with Jazz saying, no matter the time and where she was, if she ever got herself stuck somewhere, she would always reach out. Around this time, Breanna also became involved with a man, and Jazz told the Fresh Start podcast that she could see the warning signs of it not being a healthy relationship. After a couple years, it ended, and Jazz supported her daughter through her first heartbreak. In the months before her disappearance, Breanna started withdrawing from her family. Jazz told the Fresh Start podcast that Breanna avoided speaking or looking at her and started skipping their weekly coffee catch-ups. She started to lie about where she was going and who she was spending time with, and Jazz didn't know these new friends and acquaintances. It's important to note that Breanna was a legal adult at this point. She was 22, so she didn't have to tell her family about her movements, but Jazz found it odd because they had been so close. It was a big shift from the open communication they used to have. It appears at this time that Jazz was able to get in contact with Breanna without much issue by phone or text. It's just that it doesn't seem that Breanna was as forthcoming with information and what was going on in her life as she once was. With that, Jazz thought it was a little odd when on Friday, the 26th of August, 2022, she couldn't get a hold of Breanna at all. In fact, this lack of communication continued all weekend, which again, was pretty out of character for Breanna and extremely worrying for Jazz. While she could have probably just brushed the concerning thoughts off for the day, she knew something wasn't right.
Then on Monday, August 29th, Jazz was at work when she received a call from Susie that made her blood run cold. Susie had found Breanna's handbag on her front lawn, waterlogged and full of sand. And unfortunately, there was no sign of Breanna.
This episode is sponsored by Greenlight. We've made it to the middle of summer, and we're supposed to be slowing down, but sometimes we really just can't help but realize that it's just going by way too fast. The kids are about to start school again in a brand new grade, maybe even a brand new school. That means they're getting older, taller, and maybe even a little bit wiser. Parents, guardians, aunties, uncles, you can continue to help your favorite kids learn and build independence this summer while they're outside spending more time away from home in the warm weather with Greenlight. Natalie, why don't you tell them what Greenlight is?
Sure. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families. It's where parents can keep an eye on kids' spending and money habits while kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. You know, things that they're going to need to know for the rest of their lives. Then there's Greenlight's Infinity Plan, which includes all the financial literacy education that makes Greenlight a valuable resource for millions of parents and kids, plus built-in safety to give you peace of mind. With Greenlight Infinity, teens can check in without needing to actually check in, thanks to the family location sharing. They can also call for help when they need it with SOS alerts that connect them to family members, 911, or both. And probably one of my most favorite features is one that detects car crashes. It'll also connect your young drivers to 911 dispatch and alert emergency contacts if needed. So no matter which features make the most sense for your household, Greenlight is the easy, convenient way for parents to raise financially smart kids and for families to navigate life together.
Sign up for Greenlight today and get your first month free when you go to greenlight.com/diaries. That's greenlight.com/diaries to try Greenlight for free. greenlight.com/diaries.
It's time for today's Lucky Land horoscope with Victoria Cash.
Life's gotten mundane, so shake up the daily routine and be adventurous with a trip to Lucky Land. You know what they say, your chance to win starts with a spin. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com to play over 100 social casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
Jazz, who taught a movement class for people with special needs at the time, was also heavily pregnant. She couldn't just leave the class and her students, so she stayed and finished up before heading to her mom's. While Jazz was making her way over, Susie filed a missing persons report, which began the official investigation into Breanna's whereabouts. Jazz reached out to Breanna's friends, but no one had seen her and had any idea where she had been over the weekend. With no idea where to even start looking, Jazz endured the first of many sleepless nights while she waited to hear any information about Breanna. By Wednesday, the police had suggested that Jazz post in the local community Facebook groups to see if anybody had seen her. This idea worked. Susie soon received a phone call with a tip that Breanna had last been seen at Tahoro Beach, around 20 kilometers from her home in Paraparaumu. To this day, it's never been released who this call was from. Regardless, Jazz and Susie raced to the beach and ended up speaking with a man who said he'd been with Breanna over the weekend. But she says his story didn't add up. According to this man, he and Breanna were alone at the beach and she had run off and disappeared. Jazz didn't believe that story, saying that she didn't believe Breanna would have just gone to the beach willingly with some man, and if things went different, she would have fought back. It was later discovered that there were two men with her at the beach that night. Jazz also said in an interview that she didn't feel Breanna's presence at the beach at all. She felt more drawn to the hilly areas beyond.
And slowly but surely, a picture began to emerge. This allowed police to connect some dots to reveal Breanna's last known movements.
According to the police investigation, on Friday, August 26, 2022, Breanna was dropped off at the Paraparaumu train station by family members. She didn't catch the train that day, but instead, she met a male friend there. The friend had driven from Wellington City, around a 40-minute trip, to get Breanna. From there, the pair went to Palmerston North, around an hour drive north. It's understood that Breanna stayed at a house in Palmerston North that night. The following day, Saturday, the 27th of August, Breanna and the male friend were seen on CCTV footage at a liquor store in Palmerston North. The footage from 11:15 a.m. shows Breanna walking into the store. She's wearing a face mask, as New Zealand had strict indoor masking requirements at the time due to the pandemic, black pants, a light-colored top, a black jacket, white shoes, and sunglasses. She then spent the rest of the day at the friend's family home. Police believe that on Saturday evening, she wanted to go back home to Paraparaumu, and that her friend from Wellington said that he would drive her the 91 kilometers or 56 miles home. During that drive, they stopped and picked up another person, a male, before continuing to Paraparaumu. Breanna did not know this second male, but he was known to the friend who was driving. Midnight came and went during that drive, so it's now Sunday, the 28th of August. Around 1 a.m., the car stopped in Wynne, a small city around halfway between Palmerston North and Paraparaumu, for a little while. There's no information about what they did there, just that they were parked near a park. Then there was another stop in Otaki, where the friend was seen on the CCTV footage of an ATM withdrawing $250 from Breanna's account. Breanna was not with him at the ATM. She stayed in the car, a light-colored car believed to be a silver Peugeot 307. This car was seen in the background of the ATM camera. However, it's impossible to tell who was in the vehicle. After the ATM stop, they parked the car outside a hunting and fishing store, not far from the ATM, before continuing south, something that was also captured by CCTV. They stopped at Hyde Park near Tahoro Beach, which is where they met another person, but that person didn't get in the car. They then drove to the beach a few minutes from Hyde Park. They parked on Sea Road, which has beach access. At the same stage during all of this, Breanna's phone stopped connecting to the network, meaning it had either been turned off or the battery died. According to the men who were with Breanna that night, she ran off down the beach without them and disappeared into the darkness. They say they last saw her around 4 a.m. and, despite searching for her, could not find her. This is a story Jazz says doesn't add up to her.
And another factor in this investigation was the disappearing evidence. You heard that right. Disappearing evidence. So earlier in the episode, we said that Breanna's waterlogged and sandy handbag had been found on her grandmother's lawn, which eventually prompted the missing persons report. But in addition to the handbag, there was a suitcase. And this is where things get a little confusing with the reporting about the suitcase and other items, but this is the information as we understand it.
On the morning of Sunday, August 28th, mere hours after Breanna was reportedly last seen at Tahoro Beach, a person walking their dog came across a purple suitcase near the Sea Road accessway. They thought this is unusual and snapped some photos of the suitcase and its contents before continuing on their walk. Another person came across a handbag in the surf and placed it with the suitcase a little later. The suitcase wasn't reported to police immediately, as its potential significance couldn't have been known to the people who found them. Later that afternoon, the suitcase was gone, and it hasn't been seen since. According to reports, the suitcase contained gray track pants and a white shirt, and there was a black top, possibly a woman's, nearby. Now let's go back to Breanna's phone. We know she had one, and we know from phone records that it stopped connecting with cell towers the night she went missing, meaning it was either switched off or the battery died, like we just said. It wasn't pictured with the suitcase, it wasn't found in the handbag that was found, and it wasn't seen on the beach in the weeks following the disappearance. Finally, though, according to a One News article on October 7th, 2022, Breanna's phone was found on the beach by a local resident. It was given to the police, whose high-tech crime group were tasked with seeing if they could get any information off of it. Jazz told to News that police were able to charge and boot up the phone. She wonders if the phone was put on the beach shortly before it was found, saying that she doesn't think it would be able to be turned off and charged after over a month in the elements. However, in a New Zealand Herald article from August 25th, 23, it states that the phone was reported to be waterlogged and non-functioning. It isn't clear why there is a discrepancy in the reporting, and it may be nothing, but it's interesting to note. Police spoke with the men who had been with Breanna the night she disappeared on several occasions, and they appealed to the public to come forward with any information that could assist their investigation. These men have never been formally named or identified, and it's important to note that they're not referred to as suspects. Investigators were very interested in speaking with 3 people who were at the beach the morning of August 28th, who may have spoken with the 2 men. They were also interested in hearing from anybody who had seen that silver car in any of the locations it was believed Breanna had been in, which included Kimberley Reserved in Levine, Otaki Main Road Hyde Park, Tahoro Sea Road Beach Access, Pika Pika, and the former Marycrest School area. Police also asked to hear from anybody who had seen a green early model Honda in the early hours of Monday, August 29th, as they believed that the man who drove the silver car changed vehicles at some stage. Police were also interested in speaking with anybody who had information about the purple suitcase. They strongly believed that the car, the suitcase, and the men she was last seen with were connected, and any of them could be holding key evidence that could unlock the case. Police continued to appeal to the public to come forward with info, especially anyone that may have been approached by Breanna asking to use their phone the morning of her disappearance. They urged walkers, fishers, and boaters in the Tahero area to keep an eye out for anything that could be connected to Breanna: clothing, shoes, anything. Frustrated with the lack of movement in the investigation, Jazz took things in her own hands. She, along with her family and community, arranged searches and spoke to anyone she thought could help. Jazz told the Fresh Start podcast that she went to the house in Palmerston North, where Breanna had spent the weekend, and asked the people who lived there to tell her what they knew. She said they weren't forthcoming. However, with persistence and pressure, one person told her that they had seen Breanna at the house on August 27th, and she was acting like she had been, quote, rinsed. Jazz went on to explain that rinse is a very potent liquid GHB date rape type drug. The person she spoke to said that Breanna had been given too much rinse and had lost control of her limbs and bladder to the point where she had wet herself in the silver car. Even though she'd likely needed medical attention, no one took her to the hospital or got her help.
But Jazz made the point that if Breanna had been drugged and was in a state where she couldn't move her limbs or control her bladder, how did she run off down the beach like the men said that she did?
We're so excited to launch our journal entries series. You can listen ad-free to the journal entries series by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/themurderdiariespod or subscribing on Apple. If you're on Spotify, you can also search The Murder Diaries ad-free and listen there.
So you're probably wondering what journal entries are. And if you've ever had a bestie, you know that you can be on the phone with them forever. Or at least that's how Paige and I's relationship is. We can be on the phone with each other for 45 minutes and not even blink an eye. So that's what these journal entries are. They're going to be things we're reading, watching, and just shooting the shit with each other. That was kind of gross sounding, but... So join us. We can't wait to have you there.
For $2.99, you can join us ad-free. Again, head over to Patreon, search The Murder Diaries ad-free on Spotify, or subscribe on Apple. We'll see you there. Bye. At the end of November 2022, Breanna's case was featured on 10/7 Aotearoa on their version of Crimestoppers. Police were hopeful that this national exposure might lead to more tips. In December of 22, Jazz organized a search of Horseshoe Bend Reserve in Tokomaru, a rural area around 20 kilometers south of Palmerston North. This is quite a distance from Tahero Beach, which is where the men said that Breanna was last seen by them, but this is because Jazz doesn't believe that Breanna went missing on Tahero Beach, and she wonders if the purple suitcase with Breanna's things was put there on purpose to make it look like it's the place police should be searching. Jazz thinks the investigation has been centered in the wrong location. In her search for answers, Jazz followed up with someone who said they had information about why the purple suitcase on the beach had gone missing. Around 5 months after her daughter's disappearance, Jazz spoke with a man, let's call him Pete, who claimed that he had removed the suitcase from the beach. Jazz recorded her conversation with Pete and played it on a Facebook video. In the recording, Pete said he got a phone call from one of the men who was said to be with Breanna when she disappeared. Pete says he was asked to go to the beach and get the man's stuff. Pete said he called the other man once he got to the beach, perhaps to find more accurate directions and a better description of where the suitcase was. He then found the suitcase with a handbag on top of it. Pete said the handbag was sodden. It had definitely been in the water and contained a mask and sand. Pete also mentioned a black, possibly a woman's top nearby. He says he looked inside the suitcase and saw gray track pants and a white shirt. The man on the phone asks if his pants were there, so Pete walked around and looked for them before the man on the phone said to have a quick look for anything else. Pete then took the suitcase to meet up with another man and thinks that the other man took the suitcase. He doesn't know what happened to it after that. Jazz has been very present and vocal on her Facebook group Unite for One, Unite for All, as well as her personal Facebook, sharing information and asking those people who have clues to give them to her or the police. In April of 23, Jasmine uploaded a video in which she pleaded with the people she believes responsible to tell the police what happened so the family could have closure and bring Breanna's body home for a burial. In the video, she said, "I'm just giving you one last chance, one more opportunity to tell me where my daughter is. And I'm not going to beg you anymore. I know you've done something to her, and I know she wouldn't have gone down without a fight.
In June of 2023, Jazz organized a march on Parliament. She did this to bring attention to Breanna's case, but also the cases of other missing and murdered New Zealanders, those whose families are still waiting for answers. She also acknowledged the love and support she has received since Breanna went missing, and she wanted to channel that into the support of others.
In July of 2023, a woman's body was found at Waitarere Beach, around 40 kilometers up the coast from Tahoro Beach. While it's speculated that it could be that of Breanna, it was quickly confirmed not to be. Almost 2 years on, there are signs popping up around the areas where Breanna was last seen. The signs are simple and effective. White backgrounds with black writing that say, "Where is Breanna Muriwai?" or simply Breanna Muriwai, with the New Zealand non-emergency phone number 105. Jazz says the idea for the signs was started by the Te Kai Po Ahuriri, also known to many as the Colonel Clink, and with the help of the others, more than 50 signs have been put up across the lower North Island. Jazz continues to use her voice and her platform to help other families of missing people while tirelessly advocating for Breanna. There's a $10,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of Breanna. At the time of her disappearance, Breanna was 22 years old. She was 5'2" with a small build. She is of Maori descent and has shoulder-length brown hair. Police don't believe she is still alive. If you have any information about the whereabouts of Breanna Muriwai, please call the New Zealand non-emergency number 105 or Crimestoppers at 0800-555-111 and quote file number 220829/5320.
That's it for this week, but be sure to check us out on social media. We're available everywhere at The Murder Diaries Pod, even YouTube now. And until next week,
Stay safe. Bye.
I'm Victoria Cash. Thanks for calling the Lucky Land Hotline. If you feel like you do the same thing every day, press 1. If you're ready to have some serious fun for the chance to redeem some serious prizes, press 2. We heard you loud and clear. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com right now and play over 100 social casino-style games for free. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.